And with this, we move on to the next panel, which is very, very interesting because we're going to talk about something which is trending, which excites everyone at a very individual level. We all may want to do that. We all may want to be there. But the question is how and what is the right way to proceed and make our own self into a brand, be your own brand. And that's what we tend to discuss in the next panel. Before we start, let me have the video to introduce our panelists. Can we have the first video for our panelist for this panel?
The voice that shapes the national discourse. As senior executive editor at NDTV, he is one of the India's most influential journalists. Breaking critical stories and navigating complex media landscapes, his command of the narrative reflects the intellectual rigor inherent in the Kashmiri Pandit community. Let's welcome the senior executive editor at NDTV, Mr. Aditya Raj Kalla.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Aditya Raj Kalla. All right, we can have the applause going as he walks the alley. All right, let's have a look at the video for the next panelist. Can we have the video, please?
Dominates the screen. The voice that defines the Indian business landscape. Managing editor of CNBC TV 18 and anchor of the award-winning Young Turks. She has interviewed the likes of Warner Buffett and Bill Gates and is ranked the #1 most influential woman in Indian media. She's the sharpest mind and a proud voice of Kashmiri diaspora. Let's welcome the managing editor of CNBC TV 18, Ms. Shireen Ban.
All right, put your hands together as we welcome on stage our next and final panelist for this panel. Can we have the video, please?
A corporate titan who transformed brands across the Z network and led ventures for the Hinduja group. But his legacy is also cultural. A best-selling author and advocate preserving the legendary woman of Kashmiri history. He's a synthesis of business acumen and civilization consciousness. Let's welcome the visionary leader, Dr. Ashish R. Kaul.
Please. It's my honor to be here and moderate this panel with three of them. I'm really excited to this. Are you all excited to listen to them and hear from them? थोड़ी सी energy लाओ यार. Awesome, awesome. Great. So first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for making time for coming here. And as we talk about being the brand ourselves, creating a high impact brand of our own selves, let's set the context right. The first question is, how is building your own personal brand different or similar to building an entity into a brand? So we can start with Aditya here.
Well, firstly, congratulations to IQWAT and Ajay ji and everybody associated with this. I think it's a great platform. I'm sure that it wouldn't have been easy to organize this, but I think it's a great beginning. And I'm sure that Kashmiri Pandits across the globe can contribute to this and network together so that some product, something of value can be built on this. On the brand front, I haven't seen myself as a brand ever. My story is as original as it gets. A Kashmiri Pandit who was just 9 months old, who came from the valley due to terrorism, and then parents had to face the kind of hardships that everybody here, I don't have to repeat that. And then, something within me told me that, I have to be a journalist. And I think perhaps I was back in school when I decided this. But gradually, I think what really matters to a journalist, as say, be it a Kashmiri journalist or any journalist, is integrity, is the kind of passion you have for your work, because it's not easy. It looks very amazing when you see us on the television, but a lot of hard work goes into it day and night. I meet a lot of people, youngsters, who say that, it's a very glamorous job and we want to be on television, and, when you go to the airports, people recognize us and take autographs or selfies and this and that. But a lot of hard work goes behind this. In my domain of national security and foreign affairs, it's been even more difficult because I come from Kashmir and I have an opinion, a very strong opinion per se, and many may not be able to digest that. And accompanied with threats, with a lot of difficulties that come in. On the brand front, again, I would say that the passion, the integrity is something that matters the most, and that is what cultivates you as a brand. So you have to be as original as it gets. A PR company or a PR, any kind of a firm may help you to an extent, but there has to be something authentic, original, that really relates with the people. There is a rapport with the people. And for instance, I'll give you an example, a very recent one in the last 6 months, which is, of course, the Operation Sindoor that happened. I would say that I had almost 5 lakh more followers during that Operation Sindoor, only for the matter that I did not sleep for the 7 days that it happened. I was night and day speaking with the police, the army, the security forces, the government, and getting as authentic information as it gets. So I think that matters. You cannot just do this as a 9-to-5 job. The brand will only shape up when you show your original self, and that is something which is altogether different from others.
Very, very rightly said. So that takes me to the next point. As you rightly said, building your own brand is more of an organic process than something that you really plan for. And I'm sure for all of you, it has been the same. Can we talk a little about, see, we've heard you, we've seen you, we've read you, and we know a little about you of what we've seen. But it would be very interesting because, as Aditya rightly pointed, be yourself, write your own story, live your own story, and if it resonates with the world, this story will make your brand. And talking about it, a little about how your journeys have been, where in your journey you found that turning point where you realized, okay, I am becoming popular, and this is how I should carry myself or my brand forward. So I think a little bit from each one of you, maybe starting with you, Doctor. All right, why not? Let's start with Shireen.
Well, thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. I don't think that I've been part of a Kashmiri community gathering of this kind outside of weddings. So it's actually nice to be in a room full of so many of our community. Let's step back a little bit. What are brands? Brands are not products. They're positions in the mind of a consumer. They're essentially stories that you tell one another about something, someone. And I don't think that I'm sure Aditya will testify as well. When I started my career 25 years ago, I didn't come into the world of journalism saying that I want to be a brand. I came into the world of journalism because I wanted to tell honest stories, and I wanted to be able to tell stories to the best of my ability. The success, the winning, has been an outcome of everything that I've done over the last 25 years, but that was not the purpose that got me to start this. And I think that's what we need to be very clear about. You have to find your purpose. You have to find your calling. And sometimes it happens by accident, as was the case with me. I didn't start to want to be a journalist. I, in fact, like most Kashmiri Pandits, because we were surrounded by engineers and doctors, I wanted to be a doctor. So after my class 10th board examination, I actually interned with my aunt, who used to run a nursing home in Delhi called Mother and Child. And perhaps not the best thing to do, but the very first time that I walked into an operation theatre to watch what it actually entailed was to watch a hysterectomy, and I saw too much blood and I was like, this is not for me. So perhaps not the best way to be initiated into the world of medicine. But from then on, I decided that I was always interested in writing. I was always a part of the school debate team and so on and so forth. And I started to think much more creatively, or started to ignite the kind of creative energies that I had and started to nurture them. And then I came to college and I thought that I would do filmmaking and documentary filmmaking in specific. And again, it was fortuitous that I did an internship with Siddharth Basu and Veer Sangvi, and they were running a current affairs program at that point in time, and it was an audience-based show, and they said, you know, your job is going to be, before Veer comes out, you go out and prep the audience, take them to the pros and cons of the debate, and so on and so forth. I was there, I was doing it, I enjoyed doing it, and when I finished that process, Veer told me, he said, you have a nose, not the Kashmiri nose, but he said, you have the nose for news. And that is really how it started for me. So I think you have to have an open mind. You have to be adaptable. You have to be flexible. And at the end of the day, there is no such thing as overnight success. I think anybody who tells you that is telling you a lie. I think very often what you see people talk about on TV and so on and so forth, or when you know, the emphasis is always on winning. We're all celebrating the women's cricket team and the victory that we've had against Australia. We're all celebrating Jemima Rodrigues, but have we focused on what Jemima Rodrigues has had to endure to be able to pull off that innings yesterday? So I think we emphasize winning. We don't emphasize the process of what it takes to win. And I think that's what builds brands. That's what builds enduring brands that you know, will endure over time and will be hopefully timeless. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Very rightly said, very rightly put across. And yes, you rightly said, it is, it's the winning that we see. We don't get to see what goes beyond that one moment, and that's very important for us to realize that you got to be there, you got to be nailing it every single time till you succeed, for the world to see it. We have Dr. Ashish with us. I'm happy to know this gentleman and for what all he's been doing and he's done. And I would once again put that question to you as well, that in your journey, because you know, your journey has been with some of the biggest business houses in the country, and even being with them, you've still carved a niche for your own personal brand, which we would want to know more about. How's that journey been, and how you've realized that, okay, this is what I should be doing or speaking about?
Well, thank you. The credit for all of that goes to Shireen, and that happens to be my daughter. Thank you. But before I answer this, I think I must say this, that this is, as Shireen was saying, that this is the first time that something of this magnitude perhaps has happened, and I think all the credit goes to Ajay ji for, he's been working very hard for this. What makes, and we ourselves are very difficult people to deal with, and therefore it would have been easier for anybody else to do it, but Ajay ji, this is great work. There is another gentleman here, I think we should celebrate him as well. I saw Padma Shri Rameshwarnath Bamzai ji here, if he's here somewhere, you know, legends like him, we may not know. It's truly inspiring to be even in a million miles of people like him and the kind of work that they have done. Another aspect that today, IQWAT is something, you know, it reminds me of our so many conversations. The best word that I've ever heard is IQWAT. And, you know, when we were discussing about this, I said, you know, there's nothing else to say. Today is, incidentally, today also happens to be Ekadashi, Deotni Ekadashi, which is awakening of the gods. So I don't know if you chose it that way. And this also happens to be an Ekadashi which has a culmination of 3 Ekadashis. It doesn't get better than that. IQWAT, the Trident, has 3. There's nothing more to say. Thank you very much for doing this for us. Coming back to the brand, I think as Aditya rightly summed, it's the kind of work that you do. And eventually, people see it in a certain way. Yes, there are jobs that you do. For example, I don't know, I think one of the greatest inspirations for me is Aditya's dad, Utpalji. I mean, the kind of work that he does, it is outstanding. It's really remarkable, what he does for all of us. So I think there are jobs that you do. And as I said, the turning point in my life that, there is a job that you have to do. You have to keep doing a job, and then you must do something else also. That happened because of my daughter once, it was about, I think she was hardly 8 or 9, and, my daughter she's born in Bombay. And for the first time when we went to Kashmir, it was not that we were going to Kashmir. The flight that time from Jammu to Bombay happened to go via Srinagar. And she's a typical child who has only heard about Kashmir, and she's very judgmental. Back then she was very judgmental that, why are you always, whenever my parents come in, why does the food habits dramatically have to change? Why does it have to be Didi Kashmir first? Why are we all speaking in Kashmiri? She was seeing it that way. And the first question that she asked me when we landed in Srinagar, very briefly, is that, Papa, we are Kashmiris, right? I said, yes. He said, it's so beautiful. Back then there was a certain flight route at the older airport. It used to take a detour and then land there. Now it's a shorter one. He said, it looks beautiful, and it does. And then she said, then she had a question for me. She said, if we are Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmir is so beautiful, why are we not living there? Why? Obviously, then the question was, why are you living in a madhouse like Bombay or anywhere else that we live in? I was really tempted to say that, this is what happened. People were out there on the streets trying to kill us, trying to butcher us, trying to hound us out, and eventually it had to happen. And I stopped. I told myself that it would not be fair for me to tell a 7-year-old, 8-year-old child that this is what happened, I wanted her to develop an own understanding. That's how I was propelled rather on the journey to do my first work, which was a refugee camp that happened about, I think, 12 odd years back. That was basically my answer to my daughter. And because I believe that, we have so many youngsters who are born post-90s, they would never get to know, because one great thing about our elders is that they do not crib. The greatest thing about our community is that we don't criticize the people who have done the greatest harm to us. So you will not find in our families largely people criticizing the terrorists. We don't have that culture. And therefore, the probability of our children, of the young generation, not knowing, forgetting, and almost has been forgotten, this exodus is almost an erasure in a manner of speaking. That is the tragedy. So therefore, I thought that, we should do that. One thing led to the other, and then, it was a long process of fighting with the government to work on the women of Kashmir. So incidentally, it was a journey of about 10,000 years, which, I took a break at the pinnacle of my career, and 6 years in Central Asia, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, often undercover because most of our history has been eradicated. So the journey of those 13 women who not just the community, not just the country, but even history had preferred to be to erase out, and those were the women who are the ones who created the fundamentals on which the modern world works today. Forget about our community, forget about this country. Nobody knew about them. So, and then there the warrior queen of Kashmir, and then there was Rakt Gulab, and then there were so many things. Then last year I did Parmeshwari. Parmeshwari is a defining moment of Kashmiri Pandit resilience. post-British India, if this country has ever seen a revolution that happened in Kashmir, that was the biggest revolution where a handful of same community that was hounded out in the 90s brought Kashmir to a grinding halt. And no less than the Prime Minister and the Home Minister back then had to come down and scuttle that agitation. That daughter simply vanished, Parmeshwari vanished. I found her out because it mattered to me. I wanted to know, I wanted answers because the society was divided, you know. Pandits felt that it was love jihad, Muslims said no, it was love. I wanted to know because the mohalla that I come from, Sheetalnath, is where this iconic temple of Sheetalnath is, and that became the center, that was the epicenter of the greatest revolutions this country has ever seen. I doubt anybody knows about that. So those are the things that people then create an opinion. You may call them brand. I just say that, you know, those are the stories that have been forgotten, erased, and I see a reflection of that in the young generation who are completely taking a departure from who we are because they don't know who we are.
Can I just
Please.
Can I interrupt you to say Tur mara chalagan, it's freezing here. Can we turn down the air conditioning?
क्या सर इस हेकवा के करी थी यमन तारीने फिक्री के कशर पॉइंट so we'll have to tell them in maybe sir can we increase he understood.
I
You know, Ajay ji, next time I think what we should do is all the panelists should be wearing a Ferran.
No, but I just wanted to also pick up on what was being said, because I think two specific points that I want to make here. I think one, and probably underappreciated very often, I think the role of Kashmiri women. I think we have perhaps been the most progressive, or one of the most progressive communities when we talk about women. I don't remember growing up watching my aunts, my mother, or, you know, women in general being subjugated in the manner that we traditionally or typically see in large parts of the country, especially in large parts of North India. Women were working, women had agency, women were making choices. I mean, my aunt, you know, way back, she's in her 80s now, went to Banaras University to study. She was, you know, she was prolific with the sitar and so on and so forth. So I think that culture where women were treated equally and women had voices and women had agency, I think that has impacted me in a significant way, and I think that is something that we must recognize, we must appreciate. And I'm truly grateful, truly grateful. And the other point I want to make, you know, linking this back to the last panel that we saw, and we've all grown up with the idea that Kashmiris have been risk averse. You know, we all heard that you're giving up your job, Tavan pay, and so on and so forth. I mean, you know, we've all grown up in that environment where we were taught that do the right thing, do the safe thing, don't do the risky things. And yet I think, going back to the point of migration and displacement, I think if there is one community that has shown a startup culture, it is the Kashmiri Pandit community. They have risen with resilience. They have risen without the need for retribution. They have made the biggest pivot possible with all kinds of circumstances being thrown at them against all the odds, and I think they've done it with grace, they've done it with dignity, and they've done it with humility. So I say the biggest pivot that has perhaps happened, you know, in the last, in our recent history, and it really exemplifies, and I think it exemplifies the currency that we've always valued, education. And I think because we valued education in the fashion that we did, we were able to make the pivot as a community that we have. So I just wanted to make those 2 points.
No, very rightly said, these 2 points. One, as a community, we've proven to be very resilient. And second, yes, the education that has been our strength. And I think it's pretty evident in whatever we've been doing. And you rightly pointed out that Kashmiri women and the way we have seen the women in Kashmir, what they have done and what they have achieved. And I was having a conversation with Dr. Ashish the other day, and he told me about some brilliant work that he's doing to pull out from the archives these stories of very powerful Kashmiri women who, which, the stories that are not out there, we don't know about them. But I think maybe we can take a couple of minutes and you give us more insights of.
Sure. The project that I did for that I had was a project called Stri Desh, and it is connected to the story of Lord Krishna, who himself anointed the first queen in the world, which was Yashovati. That's probably dated about 10,000 years ago. And he said that where else could it be but this holy land of Kashmir, where a woman should be the one to lead. And that was a starting point in history. But unfortunately, we know of people only like Haba Khatuns and Nimals, and that was not my area of interest, because there are better people who have done better work on them, but that's not what concerned me. My journey took me on this phenomenal outreach of understanding, and I realized that none of that was documented, because whatever was documented was lost during early 13th, 14th century or so. All of that, our literature, lies somewhere buried deep inside the Dal Lake, where we take those fancy rides, not realizing it is one of the biggest burial grounds of our social culture. It's right there in the Dal Lake. And we as a culture, as a civilization, have traveled from fact to fiction. And there was a government mandate to sort of fictionalize everything, that this is, the word that we use, mythology. These are great stories. So some of the women that I figured among the 13 was, in fact, Aditya does this every day of his life. And when we talk of the modern world, I think combat we are living in a world which is full of combat. Do women figure anywhere in that? In the world of combat? We're not talking about exceptions, but women don't exist. But do you know that world's first paid army was creation of a Kashmiri woman? When we talk of bravery, we talk of men as brave, which they are not. But I'd like to believe that the bravest person is a soldier who goes there and is ready to take a bullet for a person who he does not know. Nothing is braver than being a soldier. We live in the times of surgical strikes and eye-to-eye combats. Do women figure anywhere? But do you know world's first commando elite was a creation of a Kashmiri woman that ran missions across Central Asia? We live in the era of intelligence. We live in the era of bridge of spies. World is governed by who knows what. We are governed by the agencies like RAW, G9, etc., etc. But do women figure anywhere? But do you know world's first counterintelligence mechanism was creation of a Kashmiri woman that ran missions across Central Asia. In the courts of Kashmir, the invasions that eventually happened were discussed 2.5 years earlier, that this is eventually what would happen. What is the greatest war strategy ever? I think we all will agree that perhaps guerrilla warfare is the greatest war strategy ever. We often, when we talk of guerrilla warfare, we talk of Chhatrapati Shivaji, and we talk of what happened in Vietnam, we talk of what happened in Russia, we talk about Syria, we now, sadly, regrettably, we talk of Kashmir in the same breath. But do women figure anywhere in guerrilla warfare? But did you know that the creator of the greatest war strategy ever was a Kashmiri woman? When I was the business head for one of the largest corporations in the world, the 5th largest bank in the world was launched by me, and I took great pride saying that it came from the West. Later on, through Stri Desh, I realized world's first bank was creation of a Kashmiri woman 3,200 years ago. I can go on. For example, I come from an era, and most of you would have, who lived in Kashmir or anywhere else, my fond memories, my father taking me to the ration shops to get ration, and it is a fantastic network of public distribution. And all of us would have read the same books and told perhaps that public distribution came from the British armies, because in the British Empire, sun never sets, or the Europeans who had these massive armies controlling different parts of the world. Big lie. World's first distribution system, world's first public distribution system was creation of a Kashmiri woman, and world's first official mandated taxation reforms, when the crown of Kashmir had to be pawned, was a creation of a Kashmiri woman. So there is phenomenal work. Today, the modern world, the very foundation of the modern world, not poetry, not craft, the very foundation on which the world works is the work of Kashmiri women, who, it is not that men got credit for it, it is nobody else got credit for it, it is the people with the white skin, Aditya is an exception, who got the credit for it, and all our stories were completely forgotten. So those were some of the things some of the greatest wars that have been fought have been, incidentally, I don't know, I mean, would we know, even I didn't know, there is only one geographical region in the world that has contributed some of the most ferocious, the most successful military commanders. It happens to be Kashmir, and they're all women. Some of the greatest war commanders, some of the biggest military commanders in the world have been Kashmiri women. In fact, we talk of women empowerment cosmetically. Today, it has become fashion. वो पापा की परी आजकल चलता है, बहुत trending होता है. It has become a fashion, not in Kashmir. If a father had a daughter and son, the probability of him training his son in warfare was minimal. If he had a daughter and if he was a soldier, the chances that his daughter was raised in a battlefield were exceptionally high. Two great military commanders that the world has ever seen enlisted themselves as soldiers in the army, didn't have army background, made their way up as the commander-in-chiefs of the armies, some of the greatest armies in the world. Technically, we tend to look at Kashmir as that 120-kilometer geographical area. No, it was bordering Afghanistan on one hand and Gujarat on the other. It was one of the greatest kingdoms ever to exist, and it was led entirely by women. Men were like the government of India, the President of India, the Jajor. The real power lied in the Prime Minister, which was the woman. And often the king would have no say at all.
Oh, we're talking about personal branding here. Brands are all about narratives and stories. I'm not sure of how many of us really knew about these insights of what Kashmiri women have been doing and are up to. How many of us knew about it? Come on, these are interesting facts to know about. Can we, gentlemen, can we all put our hands together to the loudest to all these amazing Kashmiri women who've achieved so many firsts ever in the world? Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for that. All right, coming back to being the brand. I think a lot of youngsters are there, and they get enticed by, okay, I want to be make myself into a brand. I want to be popular. I want to be known. I want to be seen. I want to see people, coming and flocking around me. So, for the rightest reasons, as you rightly quoted, that it is more of an organic process than, live your life, be yourself, and in the process, you get there. What are these, maybe a couple of do's and don'ts that you would recommend to everyone out here who wants to get more involved in their personal branding?
Well, for me, I can give you examples from my own journey. I would say that it has to be a very ethical process. You know, PR companies can come later, but you have to originally prove yourself. Secondly, I think you said about the growth story, you said about how to make it big, but you have to be grounded. And remaining grounded has to be the, pivotal, important role in your entire life from the very beginning. In my own journey, I was just 16 when my claim to fame became when I started the Justice for Priyadarshini Mattu campaign, and that led to a kind of a revolution all across the country. I didn't plan that. It happened by chance, I have to admit. I was just reading Indian Express one day, and I read Mr. Chamalal Mattu's article that there was no justice at the end of the road. And the same day on CNN News 18, there was an interview that Sagarika Ghosh did with Chamalal Mattu. And I was almost in tears. And I felt this deep down frustration that why weren't things really happening? And I just decided this was a time when there was no social media. Many of you here would remember that there was a platform called Orkut that used to be there. And I came across an American website called petitiononline.com. And I started a petition. And that petition gained momentum, and NDTV, CNN, and others contacted me. They did stories on me. And, there was this kind of a flood of people who approached me and said that you need to start a campaign. And I said, boss, I'm not an activist. I'm not associated with any NGO or a political party. But that began a huge campaign. Parallelly with the Jessica Lal campaign, Priyadarshini Mattu became a huge issue all across the country. And because of that, sustained momentum. And I would say that 70 to 80% of the people protesting were Kashmiris, because they felt that their own daughter, had faced rape, murder, and there are these parents who unfortunately are no more now, are waging a lonely battle. And finally, after the Priyadarshini Mattu case, when finally that criminal after 10 years got death sentence and later was commuted to life, we started a group called Roots in Kashmir. And Roots in Kashmir again became a platform where we had youth from all across the country, all across the globe, from maybe 16, 17 to 35, 40, coming together for awareness campaigns, for protests, for exhibitions, etc. And we did whatever we could. I mean, we also countered separatists who came to Delhi with their own agenda and narrative. Many of our activists got arrested at several points in time, 15, 20 years back. I think this can only happen when you have passion. So I may be speaking about activism, but this is true for each and every profession. In my particular case, because Shireen mentioned about the role of the Kashmiri women, in my own life, in my own family, the role of my mother has been incredible. I mean, we came in 89-90 to Delhi, to Jammu. We stayed in a garage for about 3 to 4 months. It was a garage next to a cowshed. And my parents took the hard call. They decided that we'll come to Delhi. They came to Delhi, and my mother got a job on her own merit, without any kind of a reservation, without any government sifarish or anything, at the Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts. And she worked there for 30 long years and retired as a head of department and a professor. So my story here is about how nobody in our family was working at that time. In Kashmir, our house was completely gutted. Our business was destroyed completely. But here was my mother, who stood for the entire family. She got a government job, she got government accommodation, and she withstood the test of time and said that I will be there to rebuild our life. And that's how I see her, my parents, as inspiration for whatever I did in life. So one of the reasons that I chose journalism, and I haven't spoken about this, has been the stories of the community that have not been narrated in the media. And I'm sure Shireen would also agree that in the initial 10 to 15 or 20 years, media did not report on the Kashmiri Pandits at all. It almost felt like, and I would go to the extra extent of saying, the network where I am working at that time did not actually speak about Kashmiri Pandits. I was banned by the same network in 2008, 2009, when I countered people like Yasin Malik and others. Unfortunately, that was the kind of media we had at that time. But I think there have been changes. Today also, questions can be raised on the media. It's a free country. But The bigger question here is about narrative, which you mentioned. See, narrative is not only about a PR campaign. Narrative is also about original, aboriginal stories that need to come out. And that's why when the Kashmir files came in, there was a section of the audience which said that, no, these are fake stories, this is propaganda that's happening. Ask the people who have suffered. Ask us what we have gone through. I mean, that's only 10 to 20% of what has really come out. So my suggestion here, not just to the youth, but to the entire community and to the people sitting here, would be that in the last 30 years we have lamented. We've cried, we have protested, we've demanded justice. A lot has happened, a lot has not happened. I would have really wished that a government could have constituted a committee to discuss what really happened and given us a term, because there's a huge debate. Was it ethnic cleansing? Was it genocide, etc.? But that did not happen. I hope the government does that. But we as a community have shown the resilience that Shireen spoke about. Now we need to move a little further. And little further does not only mean motivating the youth and doing counseling sessions. That needs to happen, particularly in Jammu, Jagti and other places. But we need to do some defining things in history that remain there. What Ashish ji has been doing individually, but we have to do this collectively. In the last 10 years, whenever I've visited Israel, particularly Jerusalem, I visit this place called Yad Vashem. Yad Vashem is the biggest Holocaust museum in the world. And every time you go there, you'll be shaken completely. They have preserved each and every part of their history. So my appeal to you, and people would say that, why aren't you doing it? I'm ready to contribute whatever I can. But collectively, if we have an exhibition, if we have a permanent museum of not only what happened in 1990, but our entire history, from Abhinav Gupta to Kalhan to Mamat to Charda University in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, because this cannot only remain in books. There has to be a permanent museum, perhaps in Delhi or in Kashmir or elsewhere, which preserves our history and also tells the people what we suffered in 1990. I think a previous speaker, I think it was Vivek, if I'm not wrong, who said that, enough is enough. We can't just be talking about and being sad, etc. Which is true, I agree. But we need to remember our past to excel in future. We need to take inspiration from those people who got killed in 1990, those people who suffered immensely. I've had so many stories of people who stayed in the camp, but today our CEOs, our venture capitalists are working in the international banks, AI and different arenas. So we, on our own merit, on our own dedication, having the conviction of courage, has shown the world that we can be the change makers. So I think IQWAT is that platform that has made a small beginning, but can make a huge transformation for the community with history will remember. Thank you.
Yeah, see, that's really right, because when I was thinking about having this conversation, my thought was, which was popping again and again, was what would be the actionables? And you've touched upon that, and we will discuss that maybe more in detail. One thing which I picked from your answer for the question I'd asked is, one of the very major ingredients for personal brand or building yourself into a brand is passion. Right. There's no other alternative to it. Only if you're passionate about something, you can do something amazing around that space. So picking up passion, what other very important attributes are required to build yourself into a brand? Passion being one which you already quoted.
Yeah, so let me base this on the conversations that I've had over the last 20 plus years with people who are termed quote unquote as successful. And I think irrespective of geography, irrespective of which jurisdiction, irrespective of sector, all of that, the one common theme that binds each of them together, one of course is passion. They're not driven by the need to make money. They're driven by the need to make impact. And I think that distinguishes that distinguishes the mindset of somebody who's just getting into the world of business for the sake of getting into the world of business, and somebody who's getting into the world of business or any profession for the sake of making an impact. And I think that's a very important aspect. I think some of the other non-negotiables really to my mind, and my father was a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force, so I've grown up with a very strong commitment to duty, with a very strong commitment to discipline. And I think those are irrepressible attributes to have. You have to. I mean, you know, people can argue about work-life balance today, and these have often become kind of facetious arguments that are happening in large parts of the online world as well as the offline world. At the end of the day, if you have a job to do, you need to get the job done. And I think you can argue about which compartment that fits into, whether it's life or work and so on and so forth, but I think you have to have a very strong commitment to discipline and a very strong commitment to a sense of duty. I think we also need to be mindful of the fact that we've spent far too much time focusing on what is not in our control. You know, you worry about what will Trump do, what will the government do, what should the government do, and so on and so forth. We don't worry enough about what is in our control. How do you change your response to things? Do you react or do you respond? You know, how do you better yourself? How do you present a better version of yourself? What are the skills, what are the capabilities that you need to enhance within yourself? I think, again, too much of our validation as well as too much of our focus is on the outside, whereas I think it needs to be much more internal, and I think there needs to be that constant introspection of what makes us tick, what makes us happy, what makes us move our needle in one direction or another, and I don't think we have enough of those conversations, so I think we need to start having those internal conversations as well. And finally, you know, I keep saying this, and this is based on my own experience of having built a newsroom that has survived the onslaught of global media brands, Indian media brands, going online, YouTube, influencers, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, what do people will consume you online or offline if they trust you. I think for an individual brand or an organizational brand, the foundation has to be built on trust. If you do not have trust, you will not be able to make it anywhere, as far as whichever sector you're operating in. So I think trust is absolutely essential. It's absolutely crucial. I think at the end of the day, we also need to be adaptable. We cannot, we're talking about AI disrupting everything at this point in time, and we can argue about whether it's going to happen today, it's going to happen tomorrow, it's going to happen 5 years on. But I think if we ignore or we choose to ignore what is happening outside and what is happening to us, and we choose not to respond to that, I think it will not hold us in good stead. So I think the ability to anticipate change, I think the ability to manage change, the ability to anticipate risk and manage risk, I think these are all important qualities, and these are not things that we were taught. These are not things that they teach you in school or college. These are unfortunately attributes that you learn while you're working and so on and so forth. But I think to create that culture, to create a culture where these are things that you value, that change is valued. We were talking about impermanence. As a community, we understand impermanence perhaps much more than most people do, and I think to value impermanence, to not take things for granted, I think that teaches you a lot in life, and that is how I think we've been able to create something that is today continues to be the market leader, because we've been able to anticipate change, but also because we've been able to build on steps. And I truly believe that the path to excellence is paved by daily improvement, and I think if you can improve a little bit of yourself every day and you can improve a little bit of your organization every day, is when you probably will get to that direction of achieving excellence at some point.
Sorry. Very interesting. We spoke of impact, we spoke of discipline, we spoke of retrospection, maybe talking to your own self is very important. We spoke of being adaptability. Very, very nice. From your side, what would you say is that essential of building yourself into a brand?
So going back to what I had said earlier, there is no conscious effort. Some of the greatest brands in the world are not made that way. It is ultimately your product is your greatest brand. What you do is your brand. If one hasn't worked hard enough, you're not going to be a brand or whatever you want to call it. The core of what you do is what it eventually will be. As Aditya said, everything else takes a back seat. What I think personally for me, if you say, as I said, Shireen was was the turning point in my life as to what eventually you can do. I'm not a writer. I mean, I'm a simple business re-engineer. I only know business management, and that's all I knew. I mean, not that I knew that. I mean, I failed at everything, and then I realized that probably leading businesses would be the easier way of doing that, and that sort of awakening came to me in Jammu when I suddenly realized that, oh shit, I've lost 1 year, 1 academic year, and I was thinking, कल वापस जाएंगे, परसों वापस जाएंगे, 1 साल हो गया, क्या करेंगे आप? कुछ तो आता नहीं है, because I was probably the only dream I ever had, which I could not achieve, was to play cricket. And my whole life was built around that, and I happened to be perhaps during that time, during 89, I was the only Kashmiri Pandit who was selected on merit, and I would have captained the team, and I was that good. And that was the only thing that I ever knew, and that was something that I just did not know. And then suddenly to wake up one day and realize you are in that 10 by 10 room where, even to sleep for 4 of us, my mom had to put the utensils aside so that we could simply stretch our legs. And that was always at the back of my mind. I didn't want anybody else to go through that. So what would happen, but if nobody else has to go through that, then what will happen is that you need those touch points. You need somebody more capable than you who will come, perhaps take the mantle from you and take the journey forward. Because as I always say, that we are the youngest community in exile. Others, when we talk of other communities, they've been there for hundreds of years, and they've perhaps gone through the same process, same churn that we are going through. But we live in different times. We have fragmented more, we have diluted more, and what has accelerated, in fact, if I may also take a moment to mention that I happen to be the first one perhaps to be mandated to, I've been awarded a senior fellowship by the Government of India to study the impact of terror on Kashmiri Pandit ecosystem, and it was a journey done worldwide, and about almost all the countries in the world where Kashmiri Pandits are today. It was a fellowship that was over 2 years, and that has recently been concluded and handed over to the government. And I must say this and for that I perhaps can say that I speak authoritatively on that we are a community which is not moving towards extinction. It is imminent. It's gonna happen. 40 years from now, you may have surnames that survive. We won't, because one, our death rate has already tipped over our birth rate. Then there are issues with the language that we have moved away from. We've accelerated in so many ways that we are Kashmiri Pandits only in our memories. And perhaps I am the last generation who possibly can understand Kashmiri, can speak Kashmiri. Among this fancy figure of 7.5 lakh, whatever comfort it gives you, is a big lie. Today in the world, not more than 1,18,000 people, it's a shame, can speak and understand Kashmiri. Out of so-called this fancy figure of 7.5 lakh, which is a lie, as I said earlier, less than 2% people know our festivals, less than 1.5% people know what it means to be Kashmiri Pandit, less than 0.7% people know our scriptures, know what it means to be a Kashmiri Pandit. It is a community that has already lost the plot. We've been successful individually. We have become islands of excellence. No island in the world, no matter how great it is, can survive if it is not connected to the mainland. We are those, ladies and gentlemen, we are that island of excellence that is vanishing. 40 years from now, we won't be there. And the worst part is, nobody will be there to tell our story. That keeps me awake when I do a difficult corporate job. Of late, I've been on the board of so many real estate companies, and all of us know what it means, what kind of a murky world it is. I go back, I work till 4 o'clock in the morning because it worries me. It worries me what will happen to us, and which is how I wrote Parmeshwari. In fact, Aditya, I was restructuring the entire Hero enterprise. It's, you know what kind of a madhouse it is. I did, I think, and in that, I found out where this Parmeshwari was, and I was very lucky to figure that out, and thanks to Muslim friends, at least for once, in helping me in figuring her out. And I would have possibly slept maybe 2.5, 3 hours every single day for those 7, 8 months when I did Parmeshwari. So, you may call it a brand. I think it was, to me, it is an existential. I'm just trying my best that somebody younger comes, takes it from me and takes it forward. While it is great to have individual excellence, but I think the question is for all of us. Please tell me, and don't tell anybody else, how many Kashmiri Pandits have we helped? Which it doesn't exclude simply you receiving a mail and you forwarding it to somebody else. I think the bigger question IQWAT must answer is, for the great strength that we have is, I think all of us are brands. Where do you find a community that is 100% literate? And we are not, पढ़े लिखे दो किस्म के होते हैं. एक तो वो जो हिंदुस्तान के एक बहुत बड़े हिस्से से आते हैं जहाँ से 77% IAS अफसर हमारे हैं, और उसका एंड रिजल्ट आप सड़क पे देखते हो कि हमारी सड़कों का क्या हालत है, हमारे गवर्नेंस का क्या हालत है. कश्मीरी पंडित्स fortunately are not like that. If we say we are an intellectual community, we understand what it means. It may not necessarily mean the kind of marks that reflect on our mark sheets. And, for once, my mark sheet is terrible. I hate to revisit those marks that I ever received. So I think, हमारे ऊपर जिम्मेदारी ये भी है that, each one of us, अगर हम कहते हैं कि हम पढ़े लिखे हैं, तो हमने community के लिए क्या किया? We have been successful. Yes, that was a necessity also, because ultimately, when I look at my father, I can't give him a gyan about Kashmiriyat, because for him, for people like Utpal ji, the biggest challenge was to provide for roti, kapda, makan. But nobody is hounding us today. Is anybody hounding us today? No. Why are we not doing that? It is because we don't want to do that. We've been very comfortable in doing. We have so many successful people. How many those successful people can stand up and say, I made 1% successful who was not my relative? I think these are very bitter questions, but that's the fact of life. This is how great communities, Sindhis for example. I worked with some of the largest, these guys in the world. And once I remember I was privy to a business decision. We had to acquire a company. I said, this is a bad decision. And you know what I was told by the richest man in the world? He said, Ashish, he is my community member. I'm trying to help him. So don't tell me what is wrong. Tell me, make it happen. And this I have heard from all the great legendary businessmen who come from these micro communities who were on the precipice of extinction once. Today, they are all phenomenally great communities. You won't find, I can say this even for a company like Hinduja Group, for example, Sindhis retire when they want to. There is nothing. They say that, this is my community, this is, government comes later, this is my community, I am responsible because I can do something for them. I don't bring in my intellect, I don't bring in my KYC there. I say this, I need to help him because this is my footprint. I think those are very difficult, bitter questions. Making brands out of Kashmiri Pandits, I think, is the easier ones, because I think each one of us is. As I said, I met, I don't know how many of us know Padma Shri Rameshwarnath Bamsai. The kind of work that he has done can put world to shame. You know, there are, today we are fighting this battle against illnesses, diseases. Do we know the kind of work that he has done in identifying prenatal diseases? He is the man who can teach the world. So, you know, I think we have all of it together. I think we just need to come together, shed that corporatism that we take very, very seriously. I think all I can say is that don't take the chairs that you sit on. There was somebody else. There will always be somebody more capable. Eventually, what matters is what you did with that chair, and selfishly so for your own community. First, everything else can be taken care of. We used to...
Very rightly said. Very rightly said. I think, yes, he rightly quoted that we all have seen that. I personally, I have seen the power of a community, how a community helps individuals through their journeys. And that's something which I would rather say, maybe this is where we see the silver lining.
Absolutely.
Maybe today we've all come together and we all, maybe today is the day where we all say that today onwards, whatever I've not done or whatever we've not done was past. Let's make sure that we help each other, we stand for each other, and not just for words, for action in real. And I think that's what this entire day needs to convert into, some kind of an action that we decide that we do.
And who better than, I think what Ajay is trying to do is phenomenal. These are today in time, maybe 20 years from now, we'll probably look at this as one of those defining moments. As I said, there couldn't have been a better day. The gods are awakening. I hope the gods within us guide us. Ultimately, people like Ajay, what can they do? They've already done, put up. I never expected Ajay to come here into this so well managed platform. I never. What more can Ajay do? Ultimately, it is about you, it is about me, it is about Aditya, it is about Shirin, it will ultimately come down to all of us. Look at others, they don't bring KYCs. You know, they are not clinical. हम रोगन जोश पहले भी खाते थे, आज भी खाते, कल भी खाएंगे. Has that changed? जम्मू में लोग हमको इसीलिए तो बोलते हैं कि हाथी पे चढ़ के भीख मांगते हैं. So, you know, but that's all a part of the game. But, you know, the point is where from now, there are issues like, you know, you can't avoid that, not that I am against that. There are issues of intercaste marriages, especially when we say that, that doesn't mean that it is wrong. No, I'm saying that are we conscious of about, because anything that happens, for example, very interesting thing that happened during my research was how our festivals, you see, our festivals are unique because they're connected to Kashmir. You can create a Punjab anywhere, you can create a Gujarat anywhere, you can create a Bombay anywhere. You can't create a Kashmir anywhere else in the world. Our ritualism, our language, the way we practice our festivals is unique, is different. Okay? So availability even of raw materials is impacting. But tell me today how many Kashmiri Pandits are able to celebrate Shivratri. You need a Panditji who is not available. So it's a travesty that we say that we are the most intellectual community in the world, and when you have to play a YouTube to do a Shivratri Puja, how shameful is that? So and to plausibly think that we are going to survive, it's a joke. It's not going to happen unless we take it upon ourselves to create, to preserve whatever is left, to build on that from wherever we are losing it. Are we doing Shivratri? No, it has become from what we stood for, it has become to putting a lota of jal in a temple, and that's how Shivratri has been happening. To most of the festivals, they become a joke. You know, and the food habits have become a joke. I think there are so many medical practitioners here. I think in the last 32, 33 years, the kind of diseases that Kashmiri Pandits, it is a part of my research, that the kind of diseases that Kashmiri Pandits have harbored now, it's scary. Because of our food habits, the way our food habits have changed dramatically. The way our lifestyle, our climate, we were not made for all of this. So please don't think it is just one thing that this fancy word called Kashmiriyat. No, it is made up of so many things. We have so many scary battles to fight. Individual success perhaps is the least of those worries.
I think yes, and this takes me to this very popular quote: "With great power comes great responsibility." Oh, being a brand in yourself gives you power, and I think somewhere in your journey, which happened to you guys, you must have realized that one day, यार मैं popular हो गया. People ours have started following us. I'm sure I wish we had more time, we would have discussed that. But now that we have that power, and we know that we have a responsibility as well, Dr. Ashish has already quoted that. I would want to hear from you that what are those actionables which you feel, you believe that you can and you should be doing for the community. See, we've got into a narrative कि हमें करना है, we have to help each other. So what is it and how is it that you will believe that encashing on the power that you built with your brand, how can you help the community and the members of community to grow in their professional domains?
Firstly, I have always compartmentalized, community different from Kashmir when I work. Because, of course, when I speak about the community, I get emotional. And those emotions tend to overpower any rational thought. So when it comes to the community, I've tried during my activism days to spread awareness all across. When it comes to Kashmir, and which is totally different from the community aspect. And at the level of Kashmir, be it the security aspect, be it the development, be it economic prosperity, I think there's great that has happened over the last few years. And I want to mention here that, again, a radical thought, that I have tend to realize that I as an individual can contribute more than me being in a group. Because in Kashmiri Pandits, unfortunately, it sometimes does happen that because all of us are intellectuals and all of us are, so well read, that, Kashmir Pachana Vanantam Panvinchana Banan. So I tend to always, whoever approaches me, like Ashish ji said, that it's not just about forwarding emails, it's about doing something. I can give you an example which I really haven't spoken about in the last 2-3 months. There was something that happened at the, at the Sharika temple in Srinagar. And somebody, some videos went viral of, things not well there, etc. In next day morning, along with 2 more friends, I took a flight to Srinagar. I met the chief secretary. I met the district commissioner. I took them there and I told them, boss, this needs to happen. I can contribute from my own money if you don't have money. But you are the guys here who can make this happen. And I'm so happy to tell you that funds have been passed by the government and the entire Sharika temple will be redone and there will be, walls will be done. I mean, whatever can happen will be done by the government. So this is a small contribution that I have done at an individual level and I will try to follow it up as much as possible. And I'm sure that, groups, individuals, communities can come together and do much more in this direction. So similarly, as I said, one of the reasons that I've felt that there isn't enough motivation in the community, children who are in Jammu and Jagati, is that I have individually helped a lot of people get jobs in Delhi. But what happens is that within the next 6 months, they cannot catch up with the pace of Delhi or Mumbai or elsewhere, and they just leave and go back. I've had instances where a person has joined a corporate job, a very well-known company, and within a week, that person has switched off his phone and just left and gone to Jammu. I don't blame him because he hasn't got the right kind of persons to tell him the right kind of guidance. So this is much more required, that we can pump in money, we can fund their education, etc. But there is a canvas that they need to know, that there's a huge world outside where they need to work. So that would immensely help if we can contribute. I can contribute in the media domain, Shireen can do the same thing. But there are individuals with great potential who can do immensely well. Secondly, on the Kashmir aspect again, I think as a community, there's a lot of anger within us. There's a lot of angst that, things didn't go right. The government did not do enough. The people of India also did not spoke. And that is fair enough. I mean, that will remain always. But at the same time, as a community, we need to realize that Kashmir is a part of India. We have to stand and we have to reclaim our land. And that's why Again, I haven't spoken in detail about it. In 2019, when the abrogation happened, 3 months before that, the Prime Minister's office reached out to me. And they wanted me to prepare a report on how things are in Kashmir, etc., which I did. I submitted to the PMO, to the MHA, etc., and things happened. I gave them details of the radicals, etc., who have been creating a nuisance. And within the next few years, there were steps that were taken by the government of India. And I'm sure even today, there needs a consistency in policy. I'm sure they are working on their own strategy, etc. But I hope that instead of, just engaging in elections, etc., which is fair enough, it's a democratic process, there's an organic change that is required, and that will only happen when there's consistency. And last example, Aditya, is that in spite of all the challenges, etc., recently we at NDTV Good Times did a concert of Sonu Nigam in Kashmir. And I have to tell you, the kind of backlash that I've faced, boycott calls, threats, threats coming from Pakistan, etc., that we will not make it happen. But there were women of Kashmir, there were girls from Kashmir wearing hijab who were sitting in the front row. There were 4,000 to 5,000 people that came in there. Now, why can't the government, why can't Bollywood, why can't private institutions do this and make it a habit? There's a huge scope in Jammu and Kashmir. Remember 60s and 70s and 80s. I'm sorry to deflect attention, but this is important as well. If we call Kashmir our own land, we have to reclaim it. This has to happen. Thank you.
I just, I know that the feeling here is about the lack of action or the lack of community or the lack of direction. I think it's also important to recognize the fact that this is a community that has taken the last 30, 35 years to rebuild itself. It is only a process of reparation, and the reparation can actually start once the rebuilding takes place. So I think it would be a little unfair to say that this is a community that looks out only for its own individual interests. It's a community that is not giving back enough. I think it's important to recognize the fact that it has taken this community, and it's not a very long time in the larger scheme of things, if you look at it, to have to start from scratch, to have to rebuild your life, to have to uproot yourself, to have to give up, to have to reclaim in circumstances that are not of your choosing. I think it would be unfair to position this community as a community that has not done enough to give back. And I also think that there is value and merit in the fact that there are people who have gone on to create individual excellence. I mean, when I walked into this room and I was meeting people outside, I don't know them. I've never met them. I have no connection with them. But for them to have found it in their hearts, the generosity in their hearts to come and tell me that when we watch you on TV or when we see you and so on and so forth, we feel pride in the fact that this is somebody from our community that's done well. I think that invisible bond that is created because of individual excellence, but at a community level, is also something that we should not take lightly. And I think that's also something that we must appreciate, because I think that does give you, it does create that invisible bond, it does create that sense of community. But I do feel that now that we have all achieved a certain stability, a certain maturity post the sort of problems that we've had to suffer as a community, I think that perhaps now is the time where people are finding the mind space or even finding the avenues and the capital, I mean, to give back. And I think IQWAT is a great example of that. And I hope that this will, of course, gather momentum, it will gather pace. But I think to lament about the fact that we haven't, as a community, done enough, I think would be unfair in my opinion. And I've very rarely spoken about Kashmir because I feel I didn't suffer the way that Aditya and many of my own family, my grandparents, etc., because I wasn't living there. So I've always stayed away from speaking about Kashmir because I don't feel that I had the right to speak about it, because I didn't suffer in the manner in which many in this room and many who I know personally have suffered. But I think so I can take a view almost as an outsider and say that this is a community that is now attempting to give back, and this is, I would say, a very visible indication of what we are seeing here today. And that's why, I mean, when Ajay reached out to me and said, can you come and do this and join IQWAT today. And I said, you know, I'm flying back from Bombay, but I'll make it a point to be here today. And I think for many people, I think we're now finding the space and the inclination as well as the resources to try and give back. And I hope that this is something that we'll see being accelerated from here on.
I think this is what kind of translated in the earlier conversation in the day, that maybe most of the community has to a certain extent come out of that struggle to survive, and now maybe we are a little more stable, and maybe now is the time when, you know, Aditya, you mentioned that there are certain prejudices that we have, but I think our earlier generation has done enough for us to sit where we are today. And now maybe it's time for us, Dr. Ashish also quoted that it's time for us. See, you will never shy away from helping me if I approach you, right? And maybe this is the generation, or this is on us now to make sure that now on, as a community, we are stronger together, we are helping each other, we are ensuring that we are doing what as a community will take us to the higher levels. And I think it was an amazing conversation with all of them. A big round of applause. We are very short of time, but we will pick up a few questions. I think if we can see them here, or maybe a couple of you guys. Yes, gentlemen, can we have the mic that side, please? Can someone help us with the mic? Okay, are all the mics here? The gentleman there.
So thank you, and can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So thank you, Shireen, and I do agree with you. I think the story of Kashmiri Pandits helping other Kashmiri Pandits is an untold story, and when Ashish ji does dig into it, he'll find there are some great stories. But the question is about branding. I went on Grok, and I said, hey Grok, how would you describe the Kashmiri Pandit brand? And the answer was amazing. The answer was, eternal guardians of Kashmir's soul. It gave me goosebumps. But on your panel, there is one person who I have felt ever since I had the good fortune to meet him, who highlights what has been an misunderstood aspect of the Kashmiri Pandit brand, and that is courage, and that is Aditya Kalla. When he confronted Yasin Malik, I knew the tide had turned, that now we would win and they would lose. And I want to salute you, Aditya Raj, because it was in that moment the fear was in the other side eyes. Thank you.
Oh, I thought Sandeep has a question.
No.
All right. Do we have any question? I think it would be ideal to keep the questions around maybe how to build yourself into a brand, or around the commerce, if possible. Sir, you had a question, right?
Hi, my name is Sandeep Zutshi. I just want to, further talk on what Aditya just mentioned, that how do we reclaim our position in Kashmir? In the sense, it is our land. How do we take a slice of that land for ourselves, in whatever way? I don't think that, most of the forums I go to, most of the people I meet, we all talk about a lot of things, but nobody talks about reclaiming that land which we lost. So what should we, or what can we do about it?
Well, I think the least that we can do is visit Kashmir very often and ensure that we go to Kheer Bhavani, we go to all the important places that matter to us. And I'll be very honest with you today, that I don't go to a temple every day, although my parents pray every day in the morning and every day in the evening as is a ritual at home. I don't go to temple every day. But whenever I'm in Kashmir, I ensure that either I go to Kheer Bhavani or to Sharika temple or to the Shankaracharya. So this is the least that we can do. But since we have founders and investors and professionals here in the room, and we have one such company called Matamal here. And I have tried my best since the first day, I think 7-8 years ago, that they started to motivate people who love Kashmiri cuisine, from union ministers to funders, everybody, to come to Matamal and have food. And I've been trying to motivate them that your next destination after Delhi, Gurgaon, Noida and Pune should be Kashmir. Because over the last few years, the kind of deterioration of the hospitality industry and food industry in Kashmir has been very sad. So I think Matamal can be a glimmer of hope in Kashmir and perhaps will motivate many others to go there. Thanks.
Aditya, are we taking more?
I think we're done with the questions, but Ashish wants.
Okay.
Yeah, Ashish wants to add a little on this one. I think we pretty much.
Is it working? Yeah. So, taking on from what Aditya was saying, that, keep at it is the magic mantra. We don't do that, but for whatever little comfort it is there, one of the most iconic temples of the valley is the Sheetalnath temple, which is right in the middle of the valley, and I am from that mohalla, and it has been the core of our existence. You must have heard in the news that, wherever when the tourists go there, especially, used to have those Basant Panchami festival there. So tourists have, we've been, my elder uncle still manages the temple. He is 94. So we've seen to it that the temple puja mostly has been undisrupted all these years. In fact, there were our own community members who made fake papers and tried to sell the part of the land. I mean, that was a different battle altogether to reclaim that land from there, and there was a bomb blast and half the temple was burned down. But the good news is that we are rebuilding the temple on our own, and hopefully the Kalash Sthapna has happened, and I think in next few months the temple will be, the new temple will be fully operational as well. So some of you, if wherever you're there, you should go there. It's your place. Go to the Dal Lake, but first go to what matters to you the most.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and I think interesting session, amazing conversations, and we've come to certain conclusions. One, what we spoke of, how can we reclaim? The first step is, do whatever smallest we can do in our capacity. Visit Kashmir. Let's keep visiting Kashmir, let's keep visiting our temples, go to these places, and it's a gradual change. I think we keep doing this again and again and again, and suddenly we would one day realize that, we're there. We're there to a larger extent. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Ashish. Thank you so much, Shireen. Thank you so much, Aditya. It was lovely to have you on this panel. Thank you so much for being here. And yes, as we say, IQWAT finds its purpose in you all taking it ahead for everyone and the community. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. May I request team to have the souvenirs, as I keep saying, Matamal you spoke of. Matamal has been kind enough to give us these very interesting tokens of love for all of you. Please.